Hey, what's up everybody? Mitchell here. So I got a question on my last video from a guy named Malik, I believe his name was, and he was asking, what is the typical study schedule or just schedule in general of an EMT who's also in pre-med studies. So it's a really good question, but it is going to vary quite a bit depending on what type of work environment you have. So I'll break it up into a couple different environments. So let's say one that you're working as an EMT for a private ambulance company. So typically where I am, a private ambulance company is going to have shifts anywhere from 8 to 12 hours, typically around 12-hour shifts. Usually 3 times a week would be considered full-time. So when I was in school during my senior year, I was working full-time in a private ambulance company, working 3 12s a week. So the way I made my schedule was basically Monday, Wednesday, Friday were my work days, and then I tried to schedule all of my classes on Tuesday, Thursday. At my university, you basically have the option of Monday, Wednesday, Friday classes or Tuesday, Thursday in general. So I would pick the Tuesday, Thursday classes. Obviously the classes are a little bit longer to make up for that lack of the third day, but it really helped me out. So basically I would work all day, basically Monday, Wednesday, Friday, have a couple hours to study at night, and then I would wake up very early on Tuesday and Thursday, get to class or get to school around 7 a.m. Class started at 7:30, and I had like 3 or so classes, 3 to 4 classes all day, 2.5-ish hours each, I think. And that I would basically leave campus around 6 or 7 at night. So I was there 12-ish hours as well. And in between my classes, because they didn't perfectly align, I would study. For me, this worked out really well because when I was at work, I was at work. And when I was at school, I was at school. And it wasn't like I was at school and then just like messing around on Facebook between my classes. It really forced me to study and use that time effectively. Especially being on the campus, between, let's say I had biochem in the morning and then endocrinology at 11. So let's say I had an hour and a half between those classes. I'm not just gonna browse Facebook or Reddit or something. I would go to the library or just sit in the hallway in a building and I'd read, or I'd review the lecture I just saw, or more importantly pre-read preview, I guess, the lecture that was coming up. So that when I walked into the class, I was that much more ready and that much more prepped to learn, and learning became that much more efficient because time was kind of restricted when I was working full time. So second situation is you could be working in an ER as an ER tech, which is what I currently do. I'm actually finishing up right now because I'm about to move down to med school. But an ER tech, the schedule is probably going to be the same, if not very similar to a private ambulance company. For example, I also work 3 12s per week in the ER that I work. Sometimes I'll pick up an extra shift now that I'm not in school, so 4 12s a week. But it's basically the same. The only difference is that because I was still in school for a while and also studying for the MCAT while I was working at this ER, we have to work every other weekend. So effectively what that works out to, if you look at the work week from Sunday to Saturday, if that's the week you're looking at, we would work 2 weekdays and 1 weekend day per week, Sunday to Saturday. So for example, Monday, Wednesday, Saturday is 1 week, Sunday, Monday, Wednesday, and then you're off Thursday through the next Sunday. So that schedule is pretty solid because you actually get you get more than 2 weekdays off per week. You are giving up some weekend days, but it's kind of nice having a Wednesday off or a Monday off when everybody else is at work and you're able to do whatever you need, especially as a student. You can really just focus on your studies when other people are at work, and you get a lot of quiet time if you go out to Starbucks or places. They're a lot less busy during the middle of or the morning of weekdays, so that was kind of nice. And again, working those 3 to 4, usually 3 12-hour shifts a week, I feel like is more effective and better as a student because yes, your entire day is filled up with working, but you're freeing up more entire days that you can devote to studying versus working like a 9-to-5 job of course it's doable as a student, but you're working 5 days a week, and yeah, you have like 4 or 5 hours at night every one of those days, but you just worked all day, you're really tired. So of course you could take night classes and use that time to study, but I would prefer to work longer hours for less days a week than less hours for more days a week. That's just me. The third situation is, as an EMT, would be working for a fire department. Now, I've never worked for a fire department, but I do know quite a few people who do. I work with EMTs and paramedics, firefighters that have worked for or currently work for fire departments in my area. And typically, they're all 24 on, 48 off, as far as I know. So there's typically an A, B, and a C shift. So I don't know exactly how well this would work as a student. Of course, I've met students that are firefighters actively, and I'm sure they have to make some arrangements with their professor or maybe with the schedule at their department where it's not so strict, the 24 on, 48 off. But basically, you would work like on Monday, you're off Tuesday, Wednesday, you're on Thursday, you're off Friday, Saturday, you're on Sunday, and that just keeps going throughout the month. So your days kind of stagger. You're not working every Monday, you're working just the 1 on, 2 off. And you're on call 24 hours, you're at the station, ready to go all the time. The good upside to that is that you're not always running a call. So, you're at the fire station, or you're at the, you're staging in your station waiting for either a fire or a rescue call, but you have that downtime to do what you please, whether it be workout or study as a student. You will have time to study. Not every day. Some days I know they're getting slammed and they're running upwards of 10 plus 15 calls a day. They might not have virtually any downtime at the station just to relax or to study. And some days it's very slow and we only have a few calls and they have lots of time to study. So I'm sure they can make it work as a student. It's just going to be a lot different. Like I said, the hardest part with that would just be working with the professor and letting them know you might not be able to make it a class on these days because you're assigned to your station. But it's definitely doable. It's just not something I have a ton of experience in. But yeah, those are the three main ways you'd be working as an EMT while as a pre-med. Basically, it all comes down to just allotting enough time to your school. Obviously, you have to make it a class if it's required. One thing that you could do is look into not attending class if it's necessary, or if you're allowed to do that, or if it's a class where it's not necessary. For example, like in biochemistry, I went to class a few times, but then I quickly realized that my professor was fantastic and very knowledgeable, but very, very slow and just detailed with how she went through the PowerPoints. And the PowerPoints were so dense that if you just mastered the PowerPoints at home and read the textbook for additional like supplemental information and explanations, you would do great in the class. So I found after a while that I could either stay at home a little longer just to study on my own before I went to class or before I went to the university, or I could just go to campus, but like find my own favorite study space and just read it on my own. And people would sometimes post the lecture recording, so if I really needed clarification, I could look up that. Or even better, I could just go to office hours later and just ask her some specific tailored questions to what I was struggling with, instead of sitting there listening to an entire lecture, which I don't think is a very effective way to learn anyways. I'd much rather just read the PowerPoints, read the textbook, and use YouTube and different resources to use like some active learning, and not just sit there and take in information. If you are going to go to lecture, 100% you have to pre-read the PowerPoints. It makes lecture at least doubly effective. I mean, especially remember endocrinology, you were expected to be in lecture, so I kind of had to go, but it was crazy how if I would read the PowerPoint slides beforehand, obviously you're not going to fully understand what you're reading, but you're going to get the gist of it. And then when you come in, you've seen it already once, and now the professor's explaining it, and you're already primed to be ready to ask questions for stuff you need clarification on. And it makes more sense when it's not something completely foreign the first time. So I hope I've covered just the schedule of an EMT so far. I went off a little bit there at the end on something unrelated that I could talk about in a different video, but those are the three main schedules you might have as an EMT working while also taking pre-med coursework. So I hope that answers your question, Malik. anybody else that might have helped. You guys take care, and I'll see you in the next video.